It's time to work on this Engelmann spruce. Just got this on a Facebook auction about a week ago, and it's from a person who actually was able to pick up from locally, so was able to see the tree and a little bit more of their collection that they were working on reducing because they're in the middle of moving right now. So this tree is a collected piece that they had for about 25 years. It's been in bonsai pots for about that long, and so it's nice and established. Nice established root base inside here. They had done a little bit of work on it to get it to this form right now. Not very much wiring, it looks like, at this point. There is some interesting features on this tree. One of it being that it has a lot of sinuous movement. It's a tall, narrow figure here with more movement than you would possibly see in most of the tall Engelmann spruce there here in the United States. So what I've done so far is I've cleaned it up, got rid of a lot of the dead extraneous parts. Almost every single piece of this tree, the branches, have new growth on it, which is pretty exciting. It's healthy enough. It's not growing super fast right now because it hasn't had much attention for a while. Not much fertilizer, hasn't been repotted for about 5 years. So after I do this work I'm going to do on it today, I'm going to make sure it gets a good recovery with fertilizer, a decent amount of sun, and finish off the growing season strong. Next year I'm hoping to have it into probably another bonsai pot. It may go back into this pot, possibly, but more than likely it's going to go into something just a little different than this. Something that might not be quite as wide as it is. Maybe possibly just a little bit more narrow to accentuate the height and narrowness of this tree. I am going to actually be changing the angle just a little bit. So one thing I noticed as I'm turning the tree around is that it's pretty good from most sides. And also I noticed that it kind of, from most directions, kind of tilts back into an interesting angle from where it is. A little bit different than the direction I want to go with it. I actually want to have this be something that's grown on a hillside. A lot of times trees that have grown on a hill will actually, if this is the slant of the hill, this direction, okay, not that much, but at that much of a slant, they'll grow out a little bit and up because the snow load and all of the other forces will kind of move it down alongside the hill, the way the gravity will push it, and it'll grow out and then reach for the sun and go back up, which would explain this initial swoop from the bottom that goes kind of out, and then it reaches back up towards the sun, gets pushed back out, reaches back up towards the sun, and continues to do that. I want to accentuate that just a little bit more. Somewhere around there. What that's going to do is it's going to push it at a slightly sideways angle. No matter which way you're looking at it, it'll have a little bit of a reach in one way or another. So as I'm turning it this way, it's reaching out a little bit that way. And as I keep turning it, it can reach a different direction depending on which way that I'm going with it. I think that creates just a little bit more interest in the tree, and it's not a huge distance between the new ground level and where it is. So I'm not too worried about fitting in these roots that are underneath there. The roots on this side are actually exposed a little bit more than the roots on this side. So I know I can take down that soil surface enough to take that gap up there. Speaking of the roots, I'll get you a little closer to what the roots look like. Here's the roots from a little bit closer up there so you can see what we're looking at here. It's a pretty decent sized root base, but again it's mostly exposed on this side quite a bit. And there's a floating root that I have to figure out what to do with on this side. And then as you come around to this side here, most of this root base is actually underneath the soil. And you can just barely see some of the roots peeking out up here. So I know that I can reduce that like I was talking about and be able to see some of the other thicker roots that are in there underneath that soil. It's got decently old bark. Some of it has actually flaked off as I was cleaning it because it was covered in moss well up the trunk. This entire root base was entirely covered with a sphagnum type moss. I'm going to talk about another interesting feature of this tree, which is right back in here. This is a burl that has grown, most likely because there was a large branch that used to come off of that burl, and it's something that's really barky right now, and I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna adjust that, if it even needs adjustment. As you can see, it's hard to even see it with all this foliage in here, but if you look really close into it, you can see this interesting feature. I'm not sure if that's a good feature or a bad feature. Definitely happened for a reason, which tells an interesting story, an interesting journey about this tree, that something used to be there. The tree used to have perhaps a different top, and now it's trying to grow and figure out how it's going to live with a different top to it. So I'm feeling like I'm probably going to leave that in there. I believe at some point it may turn into a deadwood feature, but for right now it's just an interesting burl that's there inside of the tree. I'm going to use nearly every branch on this tree, including this lowest one right here. These trees in nature do most often have branching very low down onto the tree, and these are really thin branches. So in traditional bonsai sense, this is too low to have that thin of a branch. But you know what? This is an actual tree that actually grew in the wild and was collected this way, where it had these low branches like that. I'm going to go ahead and honor that and use these, at least for now. Down the line they may become some deadwood features, but for now they're going to be on the tree. The actual first branch on the tree would probably be up here just a little bit higher if I was using traditional bonsai styling. This tree will probably look a little bit more, I hope, like an actual tree than like a bonsai, but we'll see. So that's probably roughly where many people would have ended this and just figured out how to bend these branches upwards and around to make a canopy from there. Some may have gone up one extra level, maybe started the deadwood right about here. In any case, that would have been happening right in this general area, probably where that is right now. But this has just too much nice trunk up here at the top, and basing this off of a tree of its species in the wild, I'm still going forward with the using all of this top, and in fact the top is not going to be very mounded. Old trees are said to have more of a mounded top as the upper growth reaches its maximum height. Every picture that I've seen of these in the wild, they still have a pointed top, so I'm not sure that they actually do that same thing as far as this tall sort of image goes. So this particular one's going to have something very similar to what it has on the top here. It's kind of out of the shot because it's so high, but it'll have kind of a pointed top with still some tiers coming out of the top up there. In fact, I may not even have to wire it too much at the top. Now that I'm getting close to that top part, I've reached the section that's above where that broken off section here is in the back. So these branches are probably not going to be quite so much of a downward angle. These will be a little bit more horizontal, quite a bit more horizontal actually. Maybe a branch here or there will be a little bit more, a little bit downward bent. But I gotta be aware that I have some very thick branches up here in the top because it does appear to be quite apically dominant. A lot of strong growth up here at the top section. And this is probably going to be something that I continue on another day also, because I have some family stuff and some other things I got coming up here in just a minute. That's just kind of the way it goes. I have certain times that I can throw in some bonsai stuff, and I have a lot of life happening in there also. So I do have fun while I can doing this. I might actually show you a part 2 where I finish this later, because I think that's what I'm going to do. Definitely, I'll do a part 1 and a part 2 of this. You can see the finished image next time you're watching here on Bonsai Echo here on YouTube. I'm Jared. Thank you for watching. See you next time.